Yeah, Friday, big press conference in London for the official welcoming, if you like. And listen, massive news across all fight sports, and delighted to welcome Tom Aspinall, the UFC World Heavyweight Champion, to the Matchroom Talent Agency team.
If you ask me, sitting right here, right now, do I think Tom Aspinall will compete again? I would say yes.
We need to get him back. And by the way, we don't even have to get him back to the top, because guess what? He's the top. You're the UFC World Heavyweight Champion. You don't get any bigger than that.
Listen, if Eddie wants to box, we can box. We can box if Eddie wants to box. I don't think Eddie wants to box.
Tom Aspinall has stunned the MMA world with a very shocking and unexpected announcement that no one saw coming. The UFC heavyweight champion announced that he is signed with Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Talent Agency, and it's a shocker considering the beef between Dana White and Tom Aspinall.
Some surprising news earlier today. Tom Aspinall was signed with Eddie Hearn as a manager. You obviously have some issues with Eddie. What did you think about that news, and what do you make of that decision?
We don't have any issues with Eddie. They can get whoever they want to represent him. Tito Ortiz used to represent people, and we got it done.
Eddie Hearn also welcomed Aspinall to his agency, assuring him that he will get what he deserves. Eddie said, "Welcome to the team, UFC heavyweight champ Tom Aspinall. Time to get what's yours." Eddie Hearn tells Tom Aspinall that he sees him as a true global star, and it's time the world recognizes it. He talks about elevating Tom's presence, growing his brand, and ensuring his achievements get the spotlight they deserve. For Hearn, the mission goes beyond business. It's about treating Aspinall properly while creating a partnership built for long-term success.
I look at you and I think, you are one of the biggest stars in global fight sports. So time to put some respect on that, time to build that brand, build that profile. Our role with you is to sit across the team to do that. There's loads of reasons I want to do this, but actually you deserve to be treated in a specific way for what you've achieved. Yeah. So that's really what it comes down to. And we're really motivated on this for many reasons, but also to make the agency work, but also to make it a success.
Tom Aspinall reveals he's focused on making the most of his career after joining forces with Eddie Hearn. He explains that his team was small for most of his journey, and bringing Hearn on board is about boosting his value and growing commercially while competing. Despite still recovering from injury, Aspinall is eager to return to action and make every moment in the sport count.
You probably know already, I have signed with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom on a commercial advisory deal.
What's your initial thoughts on this, mate?
Well, we've done most of my career with the really small team that I've got, so I wanted to add to my value. Eddie's someone that I've known for a fair bit. I trust Eddie, and I want to make as much money and grow commercially as much as possible while I'm fighting.
And what does this mean for, your fighting career going forward as well?
Obviously, we're still recovering, but I'm looking to get back in there as soon as possible. So I just want to maximise the time that I've got in the sport, grow more commercially, and do it with, expand my team a little bit, make it as big and powerful as possible.
On the other hand, Dana White is not happy after learning that Tom Aspinall has joined forces with Eddie Hearn, making it clear that he now wants a direct conversation with the heavyweight champion. White insists there has been a major misunderstanding regarding comments about Aspinall's injury and rejects the idea that he ever disrespected him. Dana emphasizes that he has always held Tom in high regard and says the two need to clear the air personally, stressing that he has never questioned Aspinall's situation or intended to speak negatively about it.
What is the situation with Tom? Because he had this eye surgery. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you've not had any personal contact with him since then. What is the current state of play with Tom?
Yeah, the company has talked to him. I haven't talked to him, and Tom and I obviously need to talk. He came out recently, or his dad too, saying that they felt like I was, I don't know how they said it, but that I had sort of shit on him. In the way that I had spoke about, his eye injury, which was absolutely positively not the case. Tom Aspinall is a guy that I respect. He's been great, to work with, the whole time he's been here in the UFC. And, never once did I question his injury or speak negatively about it.
Dana White insists there has never been an issue between him and Tom Aspinall, stressing that any tension comes from a misunderstanding. White explains that when he commented on Tom's condition, he was simply repeating what he believed to be the situation based on information from the medical team. Dana maintains that he never intended to question Tom or undermine him in any way, making it clear he respects Tom and has always had a positive relationship with him.
I said something once that I said, I think he's okay, and I think he's going to be good, and they came out and said, no, that's not the case. And they said, I haven't even talked to Dana. I don't know why he would say that. But, obviously my medical team is talking to him, and that was what I had thought. And they thought that I had knocked him in some way, which I absolutely positively didn't and wouldn't. I like him very much and respect him. I've never had a problem with Tom Aspinall.
Eddie Hearn shares that when he first sat down with Tom Aspinall, the heavyweight seemed mentally drained after everything surrounding his situation. Hearn sensed frustration and exhaustion, as if Aspinall had been repeating the same conversations and waiting for answers that never came. Despite that mindset, Eddie remained confident about working with him, believing the partnership could help shift the momentum around Tom's career.
Talking to Andy, which can last a long time sometimes, the passion that they have, the groundness that they have, the integrity they have. I just felt like I met a man that was just a little bit broken, if I'm honest with you. You got to feel like, you've achieved a lot. And you've got to actually feel like you are the man. I know you're humble, but at the same time, don't also forget what you've done and who you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Put some, I know it's a bit cringe, but put some respect on the name. I mean, that's the reality. One of the things he said to me, he said, you sure you want to represent me? I'm a bit of a sort of broken record at the moment. I said, what are you talking about? You're the UFC World Heavyweight Champion, mate. You're one of the most fierce fighters on the planet, and I see you as a massive star. Get your chin up, get your mojo up.
Meanwhile, Dana White makes it clear from the start that Tom Aspinall remains fully committed to the UFC, with his contract and career firmly tied to the organization. Eddie Hearn odds that their collaboration focuses on guiding Aspinall's brand, business ventures, and long-term strategy, providing advisory support across all areas. While Tom could potentially succeed in boxing,
do you think he'll fight again?
I do.
Is that from conversations his team have had with your team?
Well, he's still dealing with whatever's going on with his eyes. And obviously over the last 30 years of being in this business, I've seen, injuries that I questioned whether guys would come back from, and they always have, including eye pokes, but who knows? But if you ask me, sitting right here, right now, do I think Tom Aspinall will compete again? I would say yes.
Speaking to Piers Morgan, Dana White makes it clear that he thinks Tom Aspinall will fight again. While noting that Aspinall is still managing his eye injury, Dana reflects on his decades in the sport, having seen fighters recover from serious setbacks time and time again. Speaking candidly, he says that based on what he knows, he fully expects Aspinall to return to competition.
Eddie has a 10-year advantage over you. He's got the youth, but you are Dana White. You are the biggest animal in world sport. If it actually happened, who would win?
Listen, if Eddie wants to box, we can box. We can box if Eddie wants to box. I don't think Eddie wants to box.
Would you be confident?
Yeah, listen, I used to, back in the day, I used to box with all the guys, boxers and UFC guys. I have boxed.
So if Eddie Hearn's up for it, you're on for it.
Absolutely.
However, Eddie Hearn says that Tom Aspinall hasn't received the recognition he deserves as a UFC heavyweight. He explains that without strong support, narratives can take over and overshadow a fighter's accomplishments, and he believes that's exactly what happened with Tom.
What have we got to look forward to?
So much. I mean, look, more importantly at the moment is getting him back in the octagon. We know that part of this process was to kind of make me understand, because sometimes people can spin a narrative on you, and if you don't have the heavy artillery behind you, you get a little bit overrun. And I feel like that's what happened with Tom. And when I spoke to him and spoke to his surgeons and the doctors and stuff like that, and actually looked at these multiple operations that he's had, I'm kind of looking at him and going, oh, wow, this is a serious comeback. And this is not just about a comeback against physical injury. This is emotional and mental challenges that he's faced in terms of the opinion of people from narratives that have been spun on him. So He's a fighter. That's what he does. And, you know, he's missing that. And he's got a championship to defend. So absolutely, the plan is to make sure you can get him back, you know, in the octagon and making sure that he's physically ready. And hopefully that won't be too far away.
Ariel Helwani also highlights the significance of Tom Aspinall's decision to bring Eddie Hearn into his corner, noting how unusual the move is. Aspinall has long operated without a traditional manager, turning away numerous offers while keeping negotiations within his family. That changes when Hearn steps in and earns his trust. For Helwani, the move instantly elevates Hearn's standing in MMA circles. Decades of experience can still reshape the landscape when a top heavyweight chooses to put his faith in him.
The thing about Tom, and I've known this for a while, is Tom has not had a manager. And trust me, every manager under the sun has tried to sign Tom. And Tom likes to keep his circle very small, and he has had his dad represent him. We've talked to his dad about some of these things. Pizzi has talked to his dad about some of these things. And I know he has thought, okay, maybe it'd be good to have this, but he's always felt comfortable with his dad. And some way, somehow, and hopefully we'll hear from Eddie tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get him on the show next week, Eddie convinced him that he would be the best guy and that he is well suited to negotiate. In the boxing world, Eddie's not a manager, people have to understand. He is a promoter. So boxing's obviously a little bit different than MMA. There are promoters who put on shows like Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, PBC, Oscar De La Hoya, and then everyone has a manager. You've been hearing about this Keith Connolly figure who is representing Conor Benn, who struck the deal with Zuffa. And so now in the world of MMA, Eddie is going to serve as Tom's manager. You don't have to have a license to do that in MMA. There's no barrier of entry. You don't have to pass an exam. You don't have to be certified or anything like that.
The MMA guru raises eyebrows over Tom Aspinall's new deal with Eddie Hearn, questioning how it fits with his UFC career. They speculate that the move could be setting up a future shift to boxing once his current contract ends, and jokingly suggest that Dana White's announcement might even involve Aspinall being stripped of his title. MMA guru said, Tom Aspinall is still in the UFC, but now with Eddie Hearn's agency, prepping for a more smooth transition to boxing once his current UFC deal is over? What the f is going on? Something tells me Dana's announcement he had planned tonight is that Tom is stripped of the title. Chael Sonnen warns that Tom Aspinall could be stripped of the UFC title soon. He explains that a reigning champion can't simply be moved to another division and given a lesser fight, stressing that the organization has never handled a situation like this before. Sonnen frames it as a significant moment, highlighting how unusual and unprecedented such a move would be for a champion.
They're going to strip Tom Aspinall, and they're going to strip him this week. Look, guys, here's what nobody's talking about. Allegedly, we are going to get the White House card this week, okay? Now, that could be a broad term. Does that spill into next week? You guys understand the point. A lot of times these big news comes out on Tuesday afternoon. Look, you cannot take a sitting world champion, move him into a different weight class, and give him a lesser opportunity. Not only can you not do it just from the fact that doesn't make much sense. It's never happened. As a matter of fact, this has been tested twice in the last 12 months, in the form of Ilia Topuria and the form of Islam Makhachev. But we have never, and there's plenty of other examples, taken a world champion who left a weight class who did not immediately fight.
Meanwhile, Luke Thomas sees Tom Aspinall signing with Eddie Hearn as a notable move. He explains that real leverage in the sport comes when a fighter is near the end of a contract or has a path to exit. Otherwise, even a champion in the middle of a deal has limited options. To watch are Aspinall's recovery from his eye injury and where he stands in his contract, as these will determine how much influence Hearn can truly exert.
What's my reaction? In a world where Tom Aspinall is close to the end of his deal, or seemingly close, I don't know what they believe the contract says, but let's say that they do believe that, then I think the addition of Eddie Hearn is a significant development, right? Because then the real way to play leverage in this industry, such that you can have it against a monopoly, you've got to get out of the contract. That is where all of the leverage comes from, or you got to be close to the end of it, right? One of the two scenarios. But if you're flat in the middle of it and you're a champion, I'm not exactly sure what Eddie can do, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I'm not to say that there's no value to it, but it's not a revolutionary step absent A, a timeline for Tom's return given the eye injury, and B, where he is in the space of that contract towards the end. I think these are the factors I'm going to be paying attention to.
Luke also highlights Hearn's strategic timing in signing Tom Aspinall, noting the heavyweight champion's position and the growing frustration among UFC fighters over pay. While the full impact depends on contract timing, fighter representation, and negotiations in the UFC.
Eddie really was quite wise to do this when he did. Again, not only is Tom the heavyweight champion of the world, but as I indicated, there's this broader context of like these UFC fighters being like, "Why? Time out. Why are we not getting this kind of money?" And they're speaking openly about it in ways that is, I would tell you. I mean, I'm not saying I've never seen it like this. I have, but this is a unusual amount of pushback from an unusually high level place. And so, what if Aspinall ends up being the bellwether, where now Eddie signs 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys, maybe 2 or 3 UFC champions, something crazy. What happens in a scenario where he's got a bit of a hand to play? Again, until you can really get to the end of these deals, the leverage is minimized, but that is certainly something to consider going forward.
Israel Adesanya expressed frustration after reacting to Conor Benn reportedly earning $15 million for a single boxing match. He acknowledges the skill of top boxers, but emphasizes that UFC fighters are elite in their own sport. He added that he wouldn't mind earning the same payday for just one fight.
You've proved it to them. So now, again, Zuffa is the next challenge. Zuffa Boxing is the next challenge that he set his eyes on. But with that being said, don't forget what, I mean, he started in boxing, of course, but what brought you to the game? This is what got him to be the name Dana White, the UFC president, is this. So I can see why the other fighters, I'm trying to think, how do I feel? Wait, I'm like, do I feel jaded by it? But I understand, like, we know these guys are top class boxers. They're the best in the world at what they do, but so are we. This is the UFC. And if one guy can command that kind of money for one fight, and that's from the same company, Zuffa, and this is what's been keeping the lights on, is the UFC. We love ultimate fighting, not limited fighting. I don't feel jaded, but I'm like, I want 15 million for one fight too.
Oh, I mean, if you guys are taking kicks to the head and
not even. I mean, you know, like just saying, like
30
now,
billion.
okay, yeah, the bonus has gone up, but that's not guaranteed.
No, I mean, that's a drop in the ocean.
Exactly, but that's not even guaranteed.
Michael Page criticizes the huge payout to Conor Benn, arguing it highlights the struggles UFC fighters face. He points out that Benn isn't at the top of his division, while former champions like Francis Ngannou went without comparable earnings. Page believes this kind of imbalance hurts the brand's reputation.
But it's just hurtful to see the money go that way for somebody that, for me, is not at the top of his field. He's a great boxer. I'm a fan of his. I love watching his fights because it's always exciting. He always gives it all. But in that division, he's nowhere near the best. But yet you've given that amount of money to somebody that I'd say is not the best. But then you got like people over here that are at the top of that. I'm going to use Francis Ngannou simply because this is an easy one that's kind of come out. At the top of his game, heavyweight champion of the world, and was broke and having to borrow money. And it's just like, those are the kind of stories that I feel like they could fix that easily. It just shouldn't even, that just shouldn't exist. I think it tarnishes the brand as well. And as a supporter of the brand, you don't want to see people just talking bad of the brand. And I don't want to talk bad of the brand myself. So, and I feel like it's an easy fix.
Sean O'Malley also expressed shock at Dana White paying such a big amount, admitting he didn't even know who Benn was. He called it unbelievable that someone could earn that much for a single fight, highlighting that despite years of building his own name and becoming a top UFC star, he hasn't reached that level of pay.
It's for me, it's so hard to believe just because I did see it, I heard it, I've been told, Tim told me, did you see that? I'm like, that doesn't mean it's true. I don't know. It could very well be true. I can't imagine it being true. Zuffa Boxing, it's like they're paying out. I don't even know who Conor Benn is.
I don't know.
He like supposedly is a pretty big name in boxing. But I never heard of him. Yeah, they really paid this Ben. Is Ben Johns?
Conor
Benn. Conor. Whatever.
Conor Benn.
They really, Ben Jones used to be a UFC fighter. They really paid him $15 million. It's like,
I wouldn't blame you for going to box.
Yeah, it's crazy how you just put in so much work in the UFC, build this name, create this character, be this star, you know, and it's like, I'm not making $15 million fight.
Yeah.
But it's also a business. If they think that's a good business move and that guy's gonna bring in money, it's like, I get it. I don't take anything personal in business. Business is business.
Demetrius Johnson admits he hadn't heard of Conor Benn before the $15 million payday made headlines. He calls the sum crazy and questions if the fight truly justifies it. While recognizing Benn's skill as a boxer, Johnson suggests the payout is more about making a statement from Dana White, noting that fighter earnings are usually not disclosed.
And, you know, $15 million for one fight, it's crazy because what's going to happen after this fight, right? Is the $15 million worth having Conor Benn? It's the first time I've heard of him. From what everybody tells me, he's a very good boxer. But is Khamzat Chimaev making $15 million? Is Ilia Topuria making $15 million? Merab Dvalishvili making $15? We don't know because those numbers are always hidden. But I truly believe it's a flex from Dana White paying Conor Benn $15 million.
So the voices are increasing from the fighters, but the biggest headache for Dana White right now is the Tom Aspinall issue, because the heavyweight division is already thin. Dana will try his best to settle the deal with Aspinall and keep him in UFC, but it's not going to be easy, especially after Eddie Hearn has joined the party. So share your thoughts on the matchup and make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos.